Well, Chris Popper, I'm joined by Dr. Marc Gousse here in the superintendent's office at AOS 91. And when we last spoke, we were preparing for the opening of school. Tell us how schools have opened. They're obviously open, about the enrollment and how things are going.
Oh, well, really excited about the opening of school. The kids have done an amazing job, the teachers, the staff, administration, and you know, the parents, in terms of being patient, always with some new systems and some changes. But I guess I want to just harken back for a second, Chris, and really publicly thank the custodial maintenance staff, because we went through some major projects in a lot of our schools, and even if we didn't have major projects going, you know, they really are the unsung heroes, and I want to give a shout out to all those folks for
absolutely
getting everything done in the summer and making our schools look the way they are.
I mean, here at the high school, I mean, there was work going on up until the opening of the day. Well, I mean, I would come in here and there were sidewalks being poured, the parking lot was happening, the gym floor was being refinished. I mean, there was... there were a lot of things going up and down. I thought you might have to use a snow day in September.
No. We had the major projects going on at the high school. If you haven't been over to Trenton, the parking lot's been done. It's beautiful there, and just, you know, countless projects. But again, I just want to thank everybody for their patience and working through that. And the other piece too that, you know, I need to emphasize is that the community support for the schools, outside of the moral and the emotional, the resources that go in, they're taking good care of the facilities.
Parking lot paving is not cheap.
It's not, and there are a lot of times when, you know, schools get built or facilities get built, and then that stuff goes by, the maintenance goes by the wayside. Not so here.
Right.
People take care of, or at least have entrusted us with the resources to keep it going, and we appreciate that. So yeah, we're back at it. We're a couple weeks into it. You know, certainly our focus is on continuing on the path with the positives on teaching and learning, but I do want to underscore a couple of areas, if I may.
Sure.
You know, aside from the focus, the continued focus we have on proficiency-based education and standards, and really the philosophy about meeting kids where they're at, we are putting a focus and an emphasis this year on safety, and not just physical safety, security, but emotional safety, health, and wellness. You know, I mean, you know, we're very conscious of the world that we live in today.
Yeah.
But aside from that and the issues that folks are dealing with, students and staff, we're trying to be cognizant of that piece and what supports we can provide.
So let me interrupt you for a second.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, when you say that, there's online cyberbullying and things like that, but there are also, I mean, you know, you look at the news these days, there's, and so many of the media outlets, they like to focus on the bad things. I mean, you have hurricanes, you have tensions in North Korea. I mean, you can sit here and if you're a news junkie, you can be going, oh my God, I need to build a bunker. And I mean, this can kind of impact the family. And I mean, we're living in a 24/7 news cycle nowadays, and so that can impact people.
Well, it can, and it's important to strike the balance of making sure that our schools and our facilities are open to the public, and that we promote and sustain a culture that is welcoming, but at the same time finding the balance of making sure that people are safe, and that we have some structures in place that are mindful of that. You know,
doors that people may have in the past gone through are now locked.
Right, but yes, but I think that aside from schools, I think it's fair to say that just about anywhere you'd go, either a public or a private entity, such as schools, there are going to be protocols in place for good reason.
Yes.
To make sure that the right things are happening at the right time. So there is that aspect of physical security awareness and bringing that along carefully. And the way that we're going about that certainly is making sure that we consult with our elected officials, but we want to enculturate our staff to what the expectation is or is not, and explain to students what we are and are not doing, and then bring that along. And it needs to be like anything else. Each school has its unique cultures, and folks look at things differently. So we're trying to be very respectful of that and bring that along carefully. We're working very closely with our partners throughout Hancock County, emergency preparedness folks. And it's not just local police and public safety, it's county-wide. So, and I'm really proud of the way folks have responded with that. I do want to emphasize too, aside from that, we're the support for emotional safety. The addition of social worker resources in the district, or the adding of that. And then the other piece that we're trying to focus more on is wellness, physical wellness, and nutrition. So those are some things that, are really important to us, and we're excited about.
One of the things we talked about last year was the issue of the school resource officer.
Yes.
Where is that now?
That has been a really, really positive educational piece for me. Coming into the district, I certainly did my homework, but there were things that were just expectations and things that were just a little different regionally. And so circling back to that, I'm really pleased with the process that unfolded to review our memorandum of understanding and our policies. We engaged people on both sides of the aisle, folks that were not necessarily proponents of it, bringing them to the table and engaging them. I'm confident we had a very robust process that took the entire summer.
Yes.
And then we presented that to the policy committee made up of elected officials throughout the AOS. Those folks unanimously recommended those documents to go forward for first review at the AOS board. The AOS board did review that for first reading. They did not take action. They reviewed it. They will review that again in October, and then we'll see where that leads us. But we're confident we're on a positive path, and at the present time we're in a stand down where if we need to utilize the resources, we'll call, but we're very respectful of the fact that we're not acting until elected officials and community members weigh in.
Okay. One of the, so the memorandum of understanding is available at your website.
Yes.
It was part of the agenda.
It was part of the agenda. It is attached. The recommended MOU is, and you'll see significant modifications to that I believe incorporated the pieces that were brought forward as concerns. Within that, we utilized assets from the American Civil Liberties Union, exemplars from state and federal policy, and also state and federal statute. So we believe that we've incorporated a lot of the best practices and recommendations, but also being respectful of expectations locally.
One of the things that I was amazed after reading it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the school resource officer, unless there was a life-threatening situation, would not use his police power for arresting here on campus.
Right. So the emphasis on the position and the support is exactly that, a resource.
Right.
It is not. It is not to bring an individual in to quote unquote police or discipline students. It's really
Right.
the exact opposite. And I think I may have said to you before, short of an emergency, if there are routine or day-to-day things that are going to involve law enforcement, Jim Willis or I or the principals, we would want to shy away from utilizing
The
Officer
resource
Bland
officer.
and utilize other assets because you don't want to compromise that relationship. But certainly in any sort of a crime or a life safety issue, they are a police officer.
Right.
And that, there's no, that's pretty black and white. But routine things, they're not there to supplant teacher expectations or administrative resources or any of that. And again, I'd encourage you or others, to engage kids or staff because, unless there are things that I'm not aware of, the feedback so far has been positive. And, we'll keep going down that road, but we'll also continue to evaluate. There's also within that, if that does move forward, there's a clause in there for each side to just say, no, thank you, at any time.
Okay.
So,
you were over the summer and at the end of the school year, you had embarked upon a listening tour.
yes.
How has that gone? And you've got one more scheduled.
Yes, we've hit every community at least once, with the exception of Frenchboro, and Frenchboro is on the docket for us to head out in October. We'll circle back also and try to do one more catch-all for anybody that might not have been able to attend, provide feedback. I will do a plug also to the website. There is still an active survey component if anybody would like to go on board, and we're still taking feedback. Following that, we'll circle back with the administrative team and process as a group. This is what we heard, and we'll forward some recommendations for communities to consider.
What kind of timeline do you think there is for the community consideration?
Well, I really think it's important for us to get something back to our elected officials in our communities in terms of what we heard by November, December timeframe. If there are any procedural, policy, or potentially recommendations that may involve some finances, we want to have that out well in advance of budget approvals.
Okay. But what's staffing like? I mean, I know that busing's an issue. I mean, I know people are having difficulty finding school bus drivers throughout the state of Maine.
Well, here's a pitch. Thank you. It's a nice softball. If there's anybody out there that is interested in pursuing, bus driving, certainly there's a need, and there's support not only for active drivers but substitutes and spares. And so, we're looking hard at that. But that's not just MDI. It's statewide, and I dare say national. There's a real void there.
Well, I mean, the Island Explorer went from their summer schedule to their fall schedule a couple days early because many of those drivers drive school bus and couldn't do both.
Naively, when I first arrived here, I said, well, we were up against it. I'll reach out to the Island Explorer. Maybe they can help us. And Marc, we're up against it too, so they're seeing some challenges. So that's an area to look at about possible networking. But we have a blend here. We have some contract with two of our communities, Trenton and Bar Harbor, contract, and then there the other communities we have our own buses. But we're looking at how we can be more efficient there. I'm really pleased with the maintenance and the custodial about the networking possibilities there, as well as food service. We've been informally meeting for over a year with those groups, and it's interesting. You know, oftentimes those folks had not really had the opportunity to sit down and talk about what they do and how they can share. And you know, it doesn't have to be about. It always doesn't have to be about money. Sometimes it's just about talking to people. Absolutely. And I think going into this, Chris, that's one of the things that we're continuing to be careful of, is that, you know, I've heard informally from a number of people, we like our school, we like our structure, we like our setting. Sometimes I'll hear the question, are you going to close our school? And that's really not what this is about. It's about exploring what people are most proud of, the things that are working really well, how we can continue that, improve upon that, and what are some areas of concern. And so I'm hopeful when people see the recommendations or the report, that will be validated.
One of the things we haven't talked about ahead of time, so I'm not trying to surprise you. You're in the midst of union negotiations.
Yes.
How is that going? And I know you can't tell me how it's really going,
well,
but that's a big sticking point, because you've got teachers, you've got it impacts everyone.
Right. Well, I can speak about that. So we are about to embark on collective bargaining, which in and of itself is unique, and it is confidential. But here's what I will say:
can it be non-contentious?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, and that's the expectation, I think, for both sides. Yeah, it doesn't have to be contentious. Actually, I don't think anybody relishes conflict or confrontation. And one of the things we've worked on informally with both our elected officials and our teacher leaders is to sit down and talk about the things that in the past that have gone well, the things that may not been positively received, and how we move forward from that. So I will say that we've had the opportunity to sit down and discuss some potential ground rules, expectations, norms, if you will.
Yeah.
Both sides are looking at that. You know, I think it's fair to say that collective bargaining generally comes down to three major points.
Okay. What are they?
One being language, or the language of a potential contract, and the other two pieces, salaries and benefits.
Yep.
Those, you know, and that's a big piece for anyone. It's
one of the biggest parts of the budget is salary and benefits. Generally,
in any community, in a public entity, 70 to 80% of a budget are personnel and the resources associated with that. So it's fair to say that we recognize, and this is not MDI specific, health insurance is a concern nationally, statewide, regionally. I want to give credit to both the elected officials and the teacher presidents who embraced the concept of a workshop we held publicly just to look at the structure of insurance. And you know, I'm encouraged that we're going to be able to sit down and look at some things that I think don't compromise a platform that we provide, but at the same time allow for some conversation and consideration about some options. If we're successful in doing that, and I believe we can be, and I believe it can be a win-win all around for our staff, for our communities, and our budget. And let's face it, we have a limited pool of resources. And even though here in MDI we're really fortunate with resources, they are not unlimited.
Right.
And if we can keep that at the forefront, if we can have that conversation, if we can work collaboratively, we've got smart people on both sides of the aisle. I'm really confident we can work together and get this done in the best interest of everyone. And that's my goal. And I said this publicly, and my goal is to work collaboratively with those entities to try to get that accomplished by January.
So the contract expires Or it
in
has
June
in
of
June.
18.
Okay.
June
So-
30. But what happens is if you're not successful in negotiating a successor agreement,
It carries.
it carries
Right.
forward until. But yeah, we don't look for long, protracted conversations. We're hopeful to engage.
To wrap it up relatively quickly, and everybody can move forward and
That's the hope. That's the goal.
down the same road and down the same path.
And I'm committed to that. And I would say, as superintendent of schools, certainly I'm an agent for the board, but at the same time, it behooves our school district. We have excellent schools. We have we're doing well achievement-wise, and we recognize that. And that's certainly a credit and a testament to our students and our communities and our parents, but also our staff. And so we recognize that, and that counts for something.
Yeah, counts a lot.
Absolutely.
All right. Have I missed anything?
I don't think so, except that, I think it would be really exciting to maybe talk about, let's bring you to one of our schools and we'll engage some of our admin teachers and our students in some of our coming segments.
We'll do that in the going forward.
All right.
All right. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Chris.
All right. Thanks for watching. Check out all the other videos we have on the WDEA YouTube channel.